Okay, good morning, guys. So today I'll be giving you a brief introduction about electronics laboratory. Okay, so in my introduction, I will be talking about electronics part. Okay, electronics part. So this electronics part is consisting of two parts. All right. So the first part is analog electronics. Analog electronics. So the theory course is taught by me, right? So theory course is taught by Oswin D'Souza, and we have digital electronics, which is also called as a digital system design. Okay, digital electronics. So this is being taught by Dr. Madhu Palate, Dr. MP. Okay, so in your electronics lab, you have 50% experiments from analog electronics and 50% experiments from digital electronics. So what you study in theory, you can put to practice in your laboratory. Okay, so you have total 12 experiments. So 6 experiments are from analog electronics, and the remaining 6 are from digital electronics. Okay, and the subject code, okay, or the course code for this lab is 18 EEL 38. All right, fine. Okay, so that's about the lab code, etc., etc. Okay, so in the first session, let me talk about, okay, what do you say, the introduction. Okay, introduction for lab. Okay, now in the introduction, what I will do, I will break my introduction into 2 parts. Okay, first part, I will talk about frequently used components in AEC. Okay, and in the second part, let me take about DST. Okay, frequently used components in DST. Okay, so in AEC, the most frequently used components are diodes, then transistors. Okay, so diodes are PN junction diodes. Okay, which are low power diodes. Okay, low power rating it will have. Okay, the high power diodes, you will use it in power electronics lab. And in transistors, we would be talking about both BJTs and FETs. Okay, and after transistors, you have the passive elements, resistors, capacitors, and inductors. Okay, though we seldomly use inductors, resistors and capacitors are most frequently used in analog electronics laboratory. Okay, so this belongs to passive elements. Okay, and then we use the sources. Okay, the active elements. So the active elements are DC source, AC source. Okay, so for DC source, we use something known as regulated power supply. And for AC source, we use signal generator. Okay, sir, can I have a DC source? You can give me a small DC source and one signal generator. Okay. All right. So these are the most frequently used, components in the AC lab. Okay, and then you have breadboards, and connecting wires. Connecting wires. All right. Okay. Now, first, let me show you. Let me put the highlighter. What I'm going to show first. I'm going to show you the active elements. Okay, active elements. So that will be my first in the list. Okay, active elements. All right. Now, okay, you have to confirm. Okay, you please type it in your chat box. Are you able to see the instrument? Just let me know. Okay, fine. So this is your AC source. All right. Don't worry. What are these knobs are meant for, etc., etc. That you don't worry about it. Try to get familiar with the the device first. Okay, how to use? It's very difficult to convince you, right? Because you are sitting on the other part of the screen, and I'm sitting on the this part of the screen. Okay, cool, no problem. So this is your AC source. All right. So this AC source is consisting of a display. So this display helps you in observing the amplitude of the signal, the frequency of the signal, etc., etc. All right. And along with the display, okay, as you can see here, sir has turned on the display. Okay. The display, how is it appearing? Inverted way or non-inverted way? You're able to see the reading on the display?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is it showing? What is it showing?
Frequencies.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I just wanted to, show you that. Okay, this is your AC power supply. All right. So let me just tilt the screen a bit. Okay. I push my writing pad aside. Okay. All right. So this is your display. Okay. So you have few knobs over here. Okay. Waveform. Okay. Now when I press this waveform, okay, what do I get? I get some square wave, triangular wave. Is it legible? No, I guess. No. Okay. No worries. No worries. So there's a button called waveform. Okay. We are all engineers, right? We can understand that. There is a button called waveform. Okay. The one which I'm pressing presently. So by pressing this button, you will be able to select the desired bidirectional signal. When you say bidirectional signal, it could be a sinusoidal signal, a triangular signal, or a square wave. All right. So depending on our need, you can select the signal, and accordingly, you can select the amplitude, frequency, etc., etc. Okay. So this is your AC source. Fine. On the connector. Okay, source is there, but how are you going to connect? So the AC source is connected to the circuit using the terminals called the crocodile terminal. So using these two crocodile terminals, you'll be able to connect your AC source. Okay, so this is called as the probe. So this probe is connected here. Okay, the moment you connect the probe to this socket, you will be able to feed the AC signal to the external circuit. Okay, this is how we connect AC source to the external circuit. Okay, fine. This is the connector. This is the connector. Okay, all right. So that's about AC source. Of course, you'll not be able to connect, or you'll not be able to understand the connection, but I thought I'll just show you the device, how exactly it looks like. Okay, next up we have a DC source, pretty heavy. This is your DC source. All right. Can you turn on, sir? This is your DC source. Okay, I think this is very much legible because font size is quite bigger. What is it written? Okay, it's written that it's a regulated DC dual power supply. Dual power supply in the sense, as you can clearly observe here, that you have plus and minus terminal, right? Plus and minus terminal. This is one DC source. And again, you have plus and minus terminal. So basically, this particular DC power supply gives two different voltages. And where do you use two different voltages? In transistors. In transistors, you know, sometimes we have to power the NPN transistor as well as the PNP transistor. The NPN transistor requires positive power supply. So probably, you know, you can connect one half of this source to the NPN transistor and the second part of the source to PNP transistor. That's the reason what we have in lab is a dual power supply. And we also have a single power supply. Okay, this is fixed DC power supply. Okay, if your, let's say, usage is 15 volt DC, you can directly use this particular power supply. So this power supply is rated for 15 volt DC. Okay, so these are the two different power supplies what we have in our laboratory. All right, fine. Okay. Yeah, if I turn on, you know, you will be able to see some readings. Okay, don't worry. This is your voltmeter, digital voltmeter, and this is your digital ammeter. This is for source 1. Similarly, for source 2, we have a separate voltmeter and a separate ammeter. All right, so this is what the DC power supply looks in real time. Okay, can you give me any other alternative examples for DC power supply apart from this big what do you say 15 kg setup? Are there any portable DC power supplies that you have come across in your life? Can anyone tell me?
Sir, batteries?
Batteries, yes. Which are those batteries? The battery could be a simple, you know, AA battery or AAA battery, or the battery what you use it in your inverters, right? The big tubular battery. Yes. So those are the different examples for DC power supply. So battery works on the principle of electrochemical conversion, right? So chemical energy gets converted into electricity. That's your working principle of you know, batteries. On the other hand, you know, this particular power supply, okay, it is giving you DC, right? But the power supply input, you see the power cord. This is the power cord. The power cord is connected to AC utility. So what is happening within this power supply?
Rectifiers.
Rectifier, right? So this is like a black box. You cannot find any diodes, etc., etc. So you give an input which is AC and you get an output which is DC. That's because there is a rectifier, you know, kept inside this particular machine. Okay. You want to have a look at the rectifier? This is your rectifier. This is your rectifier. So for some coin-shaped objects, you can see, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4 coin-shaped objects are nothing but power diodes. What are they? They are power diodes. I'll keep one more device next to this object. This is also a diode. The green-shaped object, what I'm holding presently, is also a diode. And the one which is you know, fixed to this particular chassis is also a diode. That's what I was trying to tell you. So what I'm holding in my hand, the green colored diode, is a PN junction diode whose power rating is in the order of few milliwatts to, yeah, few milliwatts. Okay. On the other hand, the diodes which are found in your DC power supply will have a power rating in terms of tens of watts to hundreds of watts. So that is the reason, you know, there is something known as heat sinks. Are you aware of heat sinks? Can you type in the chat box? So these are heat sinks. Have you heard of heat sinks? Yes or no, you can type in the chat box. Okay, fine. Few of them are saying no. Have you seen the bike engine? Can you tell me? Have you seen the bike engine? Everyone. Doesn't matter whether you're a boy or you're a girl. Bike engine, all of us have seen. Have you seen the fins in the bike engine? Fins. Fins as in the bike engine. Okay. Fins is nothing but, you know, okay, let's say your bike engine is kind of this shape, okay, this shape. You know, you will have several grooves on the surface, several grooves on the surface. So these grooves are called as fins. Now these fins are provided for cooling because bike is consisting of internal combustion engine. So during the conversion of energy, what happens is that there will be a tremendous amount of heat generated, and you need to cool down the engine. So that cooling process is aided by increasing the surface area of the engine. So the surface area of the engine is increased by providing these fins. So what happens, in between the fins, the trapped air will be able to absorb the excess heat, and by convection, it will be able to disperse that heat into the surrounding medium. Okay, so similarly, in case of electronics, what happens is that when these devices, for example, the power diodes, are in conduction, they dissipate high amount of power. So if you allow that power to be there in the device itself, what happens is that the semiconductor devices undergo thermal breakdown. You know that as the temperature starts increasing, the device current starts increasing, and current in turn increases the temperature, and due to which what happens is that there exists a phenomenon called thermal runaway. That's the reason all semiconductor devices are to be used with the arrangement called heat sinks. Okay. You tell me, CPU fan. Have you all seen CPU fan in your computer or in your laptop? There is a fan, right? Why do you use that fan? To take out the excess heat. And what is, your CPU is made up of what? Millions and billions of transistors, right? And again, transistors are nothing but semiconductor devices. So when your CPU is under working, there will be a tremendous amount of heat generated, and you have to take out that excess heat. If you don't take out that excess heat, your CPU can simply melt off. Okay, so in order to protect your CPU, we use those the forced air circulation, or the CPU fans we use. Okay, so that is the use of this. All right, so that's about your DC power supply. Yeah, all right. So having said that, I think I can move towards the other elements. So let me just mark in my sheet what I have covered. Yeah, active elements I have covered. Now let me come to the, we will come to the diodes. Okay, diodes, let me come. Okay. You're able to see this device? You're able to see this device? Yes. So this is a diode. This is called as a diode. I know it is pretty difficult. Even I'm not very comfortable in doing the lab virtual way. Okay, but still, I have to do it, right? So this is your diode. So this diode is a PN junction diode, and the series is BY127. BY127. Okay. So this diode series is BY127. Okay, not able to see. Okay, yeah. Here it is. Here I have written the diode series is BY127. All right. So this particular diode will have two ends. One has to be the cathode and the other has to be the anode. Now, how are you going to identify the cathode and anode terminal? How are you going to identify the cathode and anode terminal? The flat end, this is the flat end. So this terminal is your anode, and the curved end, so there is a curve here. Okay, it's like this half moon shape. Okay, half moon shape, curved end. So curved end is basically the cathode terminal. Okay, so this is one type of diode. And we also use a diode of this kind, a small, black object you can see, right? That is also your PN junction diode. All right. So this black diode belongs to 1N4007 series. 7 series. Okay. Don't worry, I'll go back to my writing pad. Right. So I was talking about diodes, right? Let me just draw the physical appearance of these diodes. All right. Okay. Diodes. So the first diode is BY127. It's not your USN. BY127. Okay. And the physical appearance is something like this. All right. On one side, you have the flat terminal, and the other side, you will have a curved terminal. All right. And these are the two ends of the diode, the metal contacts. The flat terminal is anode, and the curved terminal is cathode. Okay, so this is BY127. And the second diode, what I had shown you just now, is belonging to 1N4007. Okay, this is the diode series. You can search in Google 1N4007 series. So the physical appearance, okay, this is the physical appearance. The physical appearance is tubular. Okay. It's tubular shaped diode. Okay. I mean, when I showed the diode, it looked black object, right? So I could not show you because the diode is very, very small. In this type of diode, there will be a marking. Okay. So there will be a silver colored marking. Okay. You will find a silver colored ring in this particular diode. So, okay, I'll write silver color. So the colored ring indicates the cathode terminal, and the non-colored, portion indicates the anode terminal. All right, so that's your diode. Okay, so yeah, diode is done. So next, let us look at the transistors. Okay, transistors. First, let me draw the device symbol. Simple and ಮತ್ತೆ or gate ಮತ್ತೆ not ತರಬಹುದಾ? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆಯಾ? Okay, so okay. Transistors. So transistors symbol you all know, right? Symbol. Transistor symbol is something like this. It's a 3-terminal device. Base, emitter, and collector. This is your NPN transistor. Okay. On the other hand, PNP transistor will have this type of symbol. Base, your emitter current is outgoing for NPN, and for PNP, emitter current is incoming. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, so that's what the symbol is all about. The physical appearance. Okay, how is it going to be? Your transistor appears something like this. Bare transistor. Okay. The 3 terminals, probably. Three terminals. 3 terminals. I'll just rotate it. You can see the, okay, this is the better angle. It is consisting of 3 terminals. Okay, 3 terminals, and to identify the base terminal, collector terminal, and emitter terminal is very difficult to convince over here. Okay, but what I want you there is a notch here. It's minuscule. You can't observe. That's okay. I will draw it. What do I do? Yeah, present the screen. Okay, so you had seen the transistor, right? You know, it was kind of circular in nature. So what I will do, I will draw the bottom view of the transistor. Bottom view of transistor. Okay, and I will share the images of all the devices that we are using in laboratory. That I can do, so that you will be able to compare these nodes with the devices. So the bottom view of the transistor looks something like this. Okay, it's a circular shaped object, transistor, and there will be a notch. This is what I was referring to. There is a small protrusion. Okay. So this is called as notch, N-O-T-C-H. Okay. And the 3 terminals you will have. Okay. So this is your emitter. The terminal which is closer to the notch is emitter. That's what you have to remember. The rest is base and collector. Base is always the middle terminal. This is the middle terminal. Middle terminal, heavily doped. All right. Middle terminal is, sorry, lightly doped. Lightly doped. I'm so sorry. Lightly doped. Because conductivity is very poor. Okay, this is lightly doped. And emitter and base, I'll just put a star mark. Okay, this star indicates that heavily doped terminals. Terminals. Okay. You can call it as a terminal. It's a layer. Okay, so heavily doped. I can just say. Okay, heavily doped. This is how you identify emitter, base, and collector terminal. Okay, so the identification is similar to NPN as well as PNP. Okay, In the similar manner, you can even identify the terminals of a PNP transistor. Okay, so this is what your transistor terminal tracing all about. All right. Yeah, and what we use in our lab, the transistors. Okay, the series name. Okay, under NPN category, we use SL100 or CL100, or sometimes even we use these. You must note that those transistors are belonging to NPN transistor. Now, what do you mean by NPN transistor? NPN transistors are those transistors which work on positive DC voltage level. So your VDC should be positive for NPN transistors. Okay. On the other hand, we also use PNP transistors. So PNP transistors are having a different series name, CK and SK. Okay. SK100 we have, or we also have some CK100 transistors. Okay. So if you get a transistor with the name SK100 or CK100, that means to say it is PNP transistor. And so the DC supply which you are going to connect to a PNP transistor is a -1. All right, it's a -1. Okay, so that's about the transistors. FET, it's okay. I am not going to talk about FET presently. Okay, sometime later let us deal with. Okay, so we are done with transistors. And next we have resistors, capacitors, and inductors. Okay. Have you seen resistors in your 11th or 12th? Inductors, capacitors? You can just type your answers. May get some. Okay, fine. Good amount of people have seen resistors and capacitors in the past. Okay, so fine. Let's look at some, resistors and capacitors. All right. So this is a resistor. Okay, this is a resistor. Don't worry, the visibility is poor. Okay, don't worry. This is a resistor. You can just get acquainted with the physical appearance. It's a tubular shaped resistor. Okay, and the capacitors. Yeah, looks like this. Okay, the small cylindrical object. The capacitors looks like this, and the capacitors will have some rating printed right on the the cover itself. Okay, so this is capacitor, and this is your resistor. Okay, resistor and capacitor. Yeah. And this is called as electrolytic capacitor. Electrolytic capacitor. Electrolytic capacitor, as in it can also be called as a polarized capacitor. Okay, as you can clearly observe that the two terminals, the two terminals have unequal lengths. All right. So the shorter length indicates negative terminal or negative plate of the capacitor, and the longer end indicates the positive terminal of the capacitor. So this capacitor is called as an electrolytic capacitor. All right. And similarly, you have other types of capacitors. This is a non-polarized capacitor. This is also called as polyester capacitor. Polyester capacitor, because the polyester is being used in the construction of the outer layer. All right. So as you can clearly observe, the two legs of the capacitors. They are of equal length. All right, equal length as in doesn't matter which is positive or which is negative. You can connect this particular capacitor in whichever way you want. Okay, you don't have to by heart the terminals. All right, this is polyester capacitor. Okay, normally what happens is that the polarized capacitors have higher capacitor rating and non-polarized capacitors have lower power rating. All right. Okay. And these are the measuring instruments what we use in our lab. This instrument is called as multimeter. Multimeter as in you can measure, you can see here, you can measure current, you can measure direct voltage, or you can measure alternating voltage. You can also measure what do you say, the resistance, and you can measure the resistance in wide variety scale, few ohms to tens of ohms to hundreds, kilo ohms, mega ohms, etc. All right. So this is called as a multimeter. Okay. All right. And further part, Anand sir will take up. Anand sir, he will be explaining few parts. Okay, transformer, you can explain, sir. So he is Mr. Anand, AEC lab instructor. All right. So he's a very knowledgeable person with industrial knowledge. Fine. Sir can explain you about.
Okay, you know the breadboard. This is a breadboard. So you know in PU college connected circuit. Okay, breadboard inside like that is there. The metal. See the horizontal and vertical. See, this is a breadboard. This is a sellotape. Inside this is like that. Okay, so line is there. Like this is line, horizontal and vertical. Okay, this is a breadboard. How to connect a resistor? So here, like that. Okay. See, this gap is there. So you have to connect like that. Okay, you come in a lab now. I'll explain clearly. Just see here. Okay. Okay. Device. Okay. This is a transformer. You know transformer. This transformer step down, step up, auto transformer like that is there. Now we're using only step down transformer. This is a primary and this is secondary. This give the 230 watts input and required whatever 12 watts, 24 watts like that, sir. This is a 0, 12 to 0, 12 to 0. So you have to connect to 24 volts. You have to put 24 volts. You have to connect. You want to 12 volts. You have to connect to 12 volts. Okay, depend upon circuit designing. Whatever given the circuits are like that, you have design going here. Okay, and
Patch cords.
yeah.
Connecting patch cords.
See, this is a kinetic patch cords. Breadboard, you have to connect it. So one and
DC
DC. So power supply. You have to connect to the positive one end and connect to the breadboard. You have to connect to the breadboard. I'll give you a small wire connecting, single strand wire. So breadboard, you have to connect. This is already you have to use PE lab to have something other level. Pakka sir. Pakka box sir. ಅದಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಈ ಕಡೆ ರೈಟ್ ಸರ್ ಕೂಡ ಅದಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ನಿಮಿಷ so you have to like that is there. So you have to connect to power supply and you have to breadboard, you have to connect this. So this you have to use, see here red wire is there and blue wire is there. Red and blue, this is the color. Give the positive here and the negative another side. Okay, you have to use like that. Use the circuit is showing easy to find out. In a difficult, you have to done the problem. No? that to easily trace out. Okay, if you give some people are giving here, don't give like that. That give negative here, positive here. Use both, but carefully how to use. Otherwise, you will damage the power supply. Okay, sir. So, thank you.
It's good, So that was Anand sir. Okay. So yeah, I think once I'm done with the all right, so resistors, capacitors. Let me tell you how to calculate the resistance based on color coding, right? I think this is not a new thing. You have studied in your 11th or 12th. Okay. So this resistor will have color band. Okay. First band, and let's say, okay. So let's say it's okay. It's okay. First band, second band, third band. Okay. Fine. So this is your first band, second band, third band, and fourth band. Okay. So your fourth band is usually colored with gold or silver. Okay. So the fourth band always talks about the tolerance of resistance. Correct, Allah? Fourth band, Allah? Fourth band. So for gold, the permitted tolerance is plus or minus 5%, and if you find a silver color over there, then plus or minus 10%. Okay. And the first band, let us say I have red. In the second band, let us say I have red. And in the third band, let's say I have orange color. Orange color. So the resistor which I had shown you previously had these colors. So you are supposed to identify what is the value of the resistance. Okay. So such questions will be asked in your Viva. All right. So for that, what we do, we use our good old BB Roy knowledge. I mean shortcut, right? BB Roy of Great Britain had a very good wolf. So black, brown, red. Okay, don't laugh. If I miss out something, you correct me. Orange, yellow, and green. Why is B? Blue, blue, violet, and white. Correct, sir? Let me just get it confirmed from Anand sir. Brown, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, white. Okay, fine. Gold, silver, ribbon. Okay. So the first two bands, okay, first two bands, how would I write? Right this way. First two bands basically constitutes a number. Constitutes a number. Okay. Let us apply then and there only the first step. So first two bands, what is the color of first band? Is red. What is the color of second band? It is also a red. So red, okay, this is 0, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you have to write down the decimal numbers. 5, 6, 7, 8. Correct? Huh?
Sir, after violet, I guess it's gray.
Gray. Yeah, see, that's what I said. Good man, good. Very good, Wolf. No, so that G I missed out. Excellent. Okay. Gray and white. That's what I should reach 9, and I wasn't reaching. I was in trouble then. Okay, fine. So red and red, right? First two bands, red and red. So write down 2, 2. All right. And then you come to the third band. Third band basically gives a multiplier. Multiplier as in 10 to the power x. Depending upon the decimal number, you may get either 10 to the power 0 or 10 to the power 1 or 10 to the power 2, so on and so forth. Okay, so can you tell me the multiplier? Orange. And what is the decimal number associated with orange? It is 3. So 22 into 10 to the power 3. All right. So the resistance value is 22 kilo ohm. Okay. Now this is what is called as that Tol Mol law, right? You say 22 kilo ohm, but if you connect it to your multimeter, you will not find exact 22 kilo ohm. There will be some, mismatch in the resistance value. And what should be the upper limit for error and what should be the lower limit for error is given by the fourth band. Okay, if your resistor is consisting of gold, that means to say the permissible drift in resistance is plus or minus 5%. Okay, so let us say fourth band is consisting of gold color. So the resistance of this particular resistor should be 22 kilo ohm plus or minus 5%. In the sense, maximum resistance, okay, could be 22 kilo ohm plus 5%. How do you write 5%? 0.05 of 22 into 10 to the power 3. Okay, that is the R maximum value. Or at the minimum, this particular resistor should have this value, 22 kilo ohm minus 5% of 22 kilo ohm. That is 0.05 times 22 into 10 to the power 3. All right. So basically, the fourth band give you R max and R min value. So whatever resistance you measure in your multimeter should be within this range. If it is out of this range, then you will have to discard that particular resistance and you need to avail a fresh resistor. Okay, there could be some manufacturing defect. Okay, all right. So that's about your resistance and capacitance. Okay, capacitance is drawn with this symbol. Drawn with this symbol. All right. So the flat end is positive terminal and the blunt end is negative terminal. This is your electrolytic capacitor. Electrolytic capacitor. Since I am putting polarity, you must observe that it is nothing but a polarized capacitor. Okay, this is also called as polarized capacitor. And for non-electrolytic capacitor, we will not mention positive or negative. This can be positive or this can be negative or vice versa. You can even take this as negative or positive. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, one important aspect of electrolytic capacitor is that the capacitor rating is high. Okay, that's how you classify electrolytic and non-electrolytic. On the other hand, non-electrolytic capacitors have low capacitor rating. All right, so this is how you distinguish capacitors. Okay, inductors I haven't spoken about. That's okay. When it comes eventually, let us talk about the inductor.
I was just saying.
All right, so that's about what do you say, the frequently used components in AEC lab. Now let us come to DSD lab. Okay, DSD lab in detail let us deal with in the upcoming labs, but today let me just talk about few fundamentals. Okay, fundamentals as in not the theoretical aspect, the device aspect. Okay, all right, so what do you have, what is there in my hand? Can anyone tell me what do you call this object or device? Can you type it in the chat box? Can you type it in the chat box? It is IC, right? Yeah, microcontroller also looks like an IC only. Correct. This is an IC. All right. This is an IC. IC, full form of IC is integrated chip. Several smaller devices are connected in a definite manner to form an integrated chip. Okay, now this integrated chip, what is there within this chip? What elements you can expect to be there inside this chip? Can anyone tell me? What elements reside within this chip? Transistors. Transistors. Right, good. So basically this IC is consisting of transistors. All right. So when you say IC, you have different types of ICs. Okay. In logic design, you know, you will have AND gate, NOT gate, you know, XOR, XNOR, whatnot. There are so many gates. All right. So I think the detailed part will be done it in covered in the next lab. So today, let me just you know, talk about how to identify the gates from something known as pin diagram. Pin diagram. I'll take just 10 minutes. Okay, so digital part. So let me consider AND gate. Okay, AND gate, because this gate we have been studying right from 11th and 12th, right? So AND gate, okay, now if you go to a market and if you say, give me one gate, the shop person will ask which gate. You will say AND gate. Okay, but the person who is selling that particular gate will not be knowing whether it is AND, NAND, NOT, etc., etc. What he knows is the number. So AND gate is popularly identified with this description 7408. If you tell him that, okay, give me IC number 7408, he will be able to understand. Okay, because this 7408, you know, will be engraved in the IC itself. So on the top half of the IC, you can see this marking 7408, and there will be several legs. All right, several legs. You get different types of ICs. You will have 8-pin IC, you will have 16-pin IC, 32-pin, 64-pin. Okay, this is one way of identifying the ICs. Whereas in your computer, you will not find these type of ICs. Computer. Okay, especially I'm talking about CPU. In CPU, you will not find the legs. In CPU, what you have is a small balls. Okay, and you know what is the material used for making these contact points? Can anyone tell me? What are the contact points of central processing unit of a computer is made up of what material, you tell me? The contact material. You have any idea? Yes or no, you can just type, no issues. Because answer will surprise you. Answer will surprise you. Yeah, Shreyari. Seems to be Shreyari is a rich person. Gold, the material is gold. Okay, that's because gold has very good conducting properties. Okay, and it is very immune to oxidation also. Okay, so gold is used for creating the contact point with the the board. All right, and this particular IC is called as BGA IC. BGA. BGA stands for ball grid array. Okay, ball grid array. That's the reason, the e-waste guys, what do? They take, the junk and they will, use it to extract gold. And remember, this gold is 24 karat gold, impurity free gold, 24 karat gold. All right. So that's what they do. They extract that gold and they'll resell it. Okay, fine. Now, how do you identify the gate from an IC? Because if you look at AND gate, the symbol what we use to represent AND gate is this. We popularly write AB as the input and Y as the output. But as I have shown you, in reality, we don't give you a device of this shape. What we give is an IC. Within the IC, you will have several gates. So you will have to identify those gates, properly. So let's say this is pin number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Six and 7. Okay, I'm talking about a 14-piece IC. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay, and 14. So normally, 7th pin is ground, and 14th pin is connected to VCC. Okay, why we need to connect it to power supply? Because what is there inside the IC? As you said, transistors, and transistors need electricity, right? So upon receiving electricity, they will be able to give you the AND operation, NOT operation, etc., etc. Okay, so in your AND gate, this is how the ICs are internally arranged. Terminal 1 and terminal 2 stands for input. And terminal 3 is the output. Similarly, terminal 4 and terminal 5 constitutes the input of second AND gate, and terminal 6 going to be the output of the second AND gate. And similarly, the other gates are connected. Okay, over here what happens? The mirror image will be there. All right. So terminal 8 going to be the output, and terminal okay. Terminal 10 and terminal 9 are the inputs. Similarly, terminal 13 and terminal 12 are the inputs to the AND gate, and terminal 11 going to be the output. Okay, this is how the IC layout is being made for IC 7408, which is nothing but your AND gate. So if you want an AND operation to take place, what you have to do is you have to give the logical inputs A and B to pin number 1 and pin number 2. And the gate operation can be observed from pin number 3. Okay, this is the whole idea about the connection of logic gates. Okay, the same explanation holds good for the other ICs also. Of course, the pin diagram may change. Don't worry, we will actually give the pin diagram. All right. Yeah. So this is what is called a pin diagram. You can see various ICs you can find here. You don't have to by heart the pin diagram. We will be giving you in the exam. Okay, because in lab the emphasis is given for implementation rather than mug up and reproduce. Okay, so you will not find any mug up and reproduce. Okay, you don't have to do this. All right, just you execute and just let us know the output. All right, so that's all for today's lab. Okay, hope I have done some justice. Okay, in the next lab, what I'm going to do is we will start with the experiments. Okay, I know it's something like I'm doing experiment and you're observing. It is going to be like a movie show, but I have an alternate plan. Okay, so in the coming week, probably on Monday or Tuesday, I will share you a software file. Okay, an executable file I will share. So probably what you can do in the next lab, I will tell you how to install that software. So that software name is PSpice. PSpice. So PSpice is basically a circuit simulation software. All right. So using this circuit simulation software, you can execute the experiments virtually. So this software basically facilitates virtual laboratory concept. Okay. So though you don't get to perform the experiments physically over here, no cribbing, you can sit at home and you can execute the circuits. All right, so this is what I'm going to teach in the next lab. Okay, please attend the lab without fail, because this is very useful in your higher semesters as well as. Okay, all right then, and next Saturday let me catch you guys. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I hope you have written the attendance in the chat box. If you have written, ignore. If you have not written, please write it in the chat box. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.